All right, hey everybody, this is Nick Boltman, and this is going to be a subscriber exclusive. Today we're going to be going over Sketchbook and kind of my start to finish process. Really, it's never done for me, but I come to a point where I'm just like, you know what, this is the best possible outcome. Let's just get painting. Sometimes I'll spend anywhere from 5 to 20 hours just on Sketchbook and Procreate alone. And I think it's important to really get, brush to canvas and get going. So what I'll do today is just show you my process, um, go over some of the details, show it in real time, because I think that's one of the most effective ways to learn. So to get started, open up the Sketchbook app, obviously. It'll pull up all of your past works. Clearly, I've got quite a lot here, starting with this back in, I think, October. Since then, I've made a lot of progress going from halos to these kind of gradient geometries. Um, some Sometimes I'll even import like a gold ring from Google, right, just to see how that looks. And then I got into these really big swooping features that you can see here on Anomaly 0. These were made using Sketchbook's gradient geometry feature and then importing that into Procreate, stretching it around, and of course, eventually painting it. So to do a new painting, what I'm going to do is use a kind of throwaway painting, where at least I think it's going to be a throwaway painting. I'm not very hopeful about it. And I'm going to show you what I would do to add some features to make it look cool. So to start, click on the plus, new from image, import a photo. Now, all of my photos, I found that on an iPhone, you do 1x raw or 1x portrait. That enables you to maintain the correct dimensions for when you're actually looking at your mock-up versus your real life painting, because you want to make sure that what you're mocking up actually translates to real life. So I would say if you did 2x or 3x with your phone, whether it's Android, iPhone, whatever, you might lose some depth. So I found the 1x to be more accurate in real life, especially now that I'm using a projector to project on the feature so I know where to put the tape. Anyway, so what I'm saying is let the dimensions pick themselves. Don't try to modify them. Um, you'll find that if you try to modify them, it'll change the amount of layers that the sketchbook will allow you to do. This goes for Procreate as well. So I just let the default happen because I need the real life rendering. So just press create. So I made this about a week ago. It's completely dried now. As you can see, I really don't like how the black came out. That's ivory black. That's even with 2 layers, watered down, maybe 70-30 with water. So not too happy about it. So really just doing this for demonstration purposes, and who knows, maybe something cool will come out of it. And yeah, so right away, kind of what I have noticed is the general swooping from right to left in this orientation of energy. There's the splashes going left, going up, going blasting out, and then everything kind of comes to a point on the right side of the canvas. So I think I kind of want to play with that energy. So what you always want to do is create a layer. Make sure you never draw on the actual layer itself. You can see on the right over here of your actual painting. Because if you were to do that, anyone that has graphic design experience, let's say you do anything, and then you try to erase it, you're going to erase the whole painting with it. Okay? Top left lets you back out, lets you undo and redo. You can also toggle a double finger touch or a triple finger touch to undo and redo. That is really helpful in Procreate, but Sketchbook also has that feature. You can just go into your settings and change that if you need to. You'll end up doing redo and undo a lot, because the whole point of this is to do a lot of mock-ups in order to get the right configuration. So select your new layer. Obviously, you can toggle it with the eyeball on and off, or visible, not visible. You can lock the layer if you need to. I really don't ever need to do that. Something I do like to do though, so let's click on the painting itself and click on that layer. You'll see this little layer window here. I put the opacity down a little bit just so that when I'm adding new features on top, I can really see what's under without distracting myself with it being too opaque, I guess. So go back to your new layer and we're going to start with our first feature. Now, what I found to get those cool swooping features is to start off with a circle tool. So use the circle And you're on the eraser tool, so make sure on the left you go to maybe this fountain pen I like using. We'll change the thickness to something a little bit smaller. Probably 2.0 works well. You can get this window here by tapping on the actual um, brush on the side, the brush, the pen, whatever. Start with the circle. That's maybe a little too thin. Let's go to like a 3.0. I also want to change the color. It's kind of annoying to change color in Sketchbook. What you got to do is go to the bottom right here, click on that window, then you got to click on this black circle, and it pulls up the whole menu here. This lets you change like the intensity. This lets you change the color itself. So I like actually using something like red, green, or blue, pulling that all the way to the side because you can really see it well against a black and white background. And you'll see in the future when we actually fill these, you want your color to be a little different than what the outside color would be. But jumping a little bit ahead of here, so let's start with a circle. Cool, a little bit more defined. Now, what I like to do is go to this tool, the transform tool. Then I click the left, the left side here, the distort function. Now, it obviously lets you distort in all these different directions. I don't want to pull it yet. But if you take the middle circle here and you pull it up, what you find is you get this cool swooping feature, right? You can do that, or you can do something like I think for purposes now, let's just do something like that. Yeah, we'll keep it kind of simple. Now that I have this, I need to find a way to, and look, you can, yeah, this transform feature lets you do this, lets you move it around. Thing you can do is you can move it again now that you've done that, and now you got this very symmetrical, good line that the app has allowed you to do, right? That's the point, because the reason I'm doing this is because if you try to do it just by hand alone, like I'll demonstrate here, like it's good, but it's just not like perfect. If you want it to look like perfect, you need to use like a circle tool just to really get that swooping motion. Plus, it gives you that extra depth. You can see on the left, the circle itself has that thicker section. Anyway, so what I'm trying to do now is just find different configurations that really capture the energy of the organic motions here. So, and this could take hours. This is not something that just comes right away. But something I have found is that usually like one of the first designs ends up somehow being something that is interesting and good enough to continue with. So for time's sake, I say we just go with that. So as you can see here, this kind of, like I said at the start, it captures the energy of that coming to a point on the right side and then blasting top and left. So this general motion could be something to play with. Another thing is if you click on this tool, not that one, if you click, wow, this, you can flip it around and see how that looks as well. Again, not loving the organic motions of this painting here, but at least can maybe make it better by doing something like this. I don't know. You can play with this as well. So it kind of has that kind of swooping around feel to it potentially. You can pull it this way, which I kind of like as well. Make that kind of Nike swoosh. Now the whole point of doing this is to just define the motion. We're not doing the gradient fills yet. We're not making those crazy objects. We're just trying to figure out what motion really uh, captivates here. Another thing you can try is something like that maybe on that side. What I like about this is you can kind of see at the bottom it kind of goes through that loop in the middle right there. But I don't know. Overall, nothing special. Um, yeah, I think because this is a throwaway painting. But I always feel like something's a throwaway painting until you can find the right configuration. So I wouldn't be too worried. Anyway, let's just kind of stick with something like this. right? Let's disguise some of that giant accidental paintbrush that I made through the very middle of the canvas by breaking it up with like a line, something like that. Kind of just like a simple halo, but it should have some interesting capabilities. We'll see. Okay, so let's take that. Now you want to duplicate it. The way I did that was I pressed on the actual layer, I pressed duplicate, it creates another one. Obviously, you now have two that are stacked on top of each other. You can get rid of it by clicking the eye or disguising it. Now I'm going to take that transform tool, pull it down, and now what you can do is you can modify certain aspects like this, right? And so now you have this kind of ribbon effect, this ribbony effect. And now all you do is take this and imagine what this ribbon would look like if it was 3D. So to start, let's maybe combine the two layers. So click on the top layer and do merge. And you see it pushes the layer down into the one below it. Merge. And then you can take your fountain pen and imagine what it would look like if it was 3D, right? Firstly, you know that this would be connected. You know that, well, that's all you really have to do because you're trying to fill in the values here. So let's do a fill. Now what you'll find is you want to keep every section that is gradiented differently, you want to have a different color fill. So if I was to do red, oh that does red too much because I think these lines are too skinny. So what you can do actually is see this tolerance up here. You can up the tolerance and lower the tolerance. I think if you have a lower tolerance, it enables you to really isolate it into those specific color ranges. So lower the tolerance when you get skinny lines. But like I said, imagine you tried to fill this, it would all be the same color gradient. So what you actually have to do is, again, like I said, isolate the different sections of different color in order to really paint it effectively. So let's try using maybe green, and it probably is confusing just hearing it, but once you see it, you'll understand. Try using green, let's up the brush size a little bit. We got to get rid of this section. Probably didn't have to go all the way, but that's okay. And then what you can see here, firstly, I'm going to turn this whole thing black because I want to actually utilize the lines themselves. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Keep the red on the outside, why not? Or up the tolerance. No, that's all good. Okay, so let's keep the lines black instead of red. It's got a little bit of both. Let's modify this section to be green. So what I'm doing is you can see the different fills here. This is a solid fill, linear fill, and radial fill. This is what I use to get those cool swooping geometric features. And I'll explain my methodology of how I do that in a sec. So let's just first start by getting it all green and then all blue or all red or something. Start with green, solid fill these sections up. Perfect. So yeah, that should be good actually. And let's fill the section over here just a little bit more. Alrighty. So now I got this ribbony effect. Now, every time you make progress, you want to actually duplicate the layer. That is your way of basically saving your work and being able to rework if what you modify this to doesn't end up being effective, or if you realize that one feature that you did is preferable to a future one. So you duplicate it, you hide it, and now this is still the initial one you're working with, which is great. Go into linear fill here, And now with linear fill, it's kind of cool. So if you press it, look what happens. Boom. It creates, it defaults to 3 different colors. It did black, gray, white. You can add colors by simply just clicking on the line. You can remove them by pulling them off. So you pull it off, pull it off, pull it off, and the technology itself will fill in all the possible colors in between those two. Thing you can do is you can pull it. What I like to do, so here's kind of the trick. So let's just do black and white, keep it simple. Or, you know what, even better idea, let's match it to the gradient in the back of the canvas. So that's typically how I do it. So let's bring up the opacity. Well, before that, let's get rid of what we just did. So get rid of that, gradient fill, up the opacity, because now what we're doing is we're showing the screen that you have an option. Let's see if I'm still recording, yep. You're showing the screen that you have an option to pull from a different color palette. So again, I want to make the gradient in the back of this painting actually fill in the green here. So in order to do that, do your fill. Oh, see, so what happened there is I'm on the wrong layer. If you see the very bottom, I'm on the painting layer, and I clicked the screen and it didn't even fill in anything. So go back to here, right? You know, on eye with the eye. You can see the display on the right sometimes lags. It's showing the old feature. But anyway, basically get back up to your fill, linear fill, stick it in there. And now what you want to do is replace the black and white with the colors of the background painting gradient. The way to do that, kind of weird, not that. What you do is you click on the bottom right, click on the color wheel, click on black, click on this dropper in the top right. There's that little droplet. And then what you're doing is you're changing the black color based on whatever's around here. So let's click this ugly ivory black color that didn't end up looking well, and you can see how gray that is. So that wasn't the intended effect, so let's just make it a little bit darker. Go back to the color wheel, pull it down, and you can see it compared to the prior color. I just made it darker, okay? So that's good. Now we've defined our black. Now go to your white, and now you're going to change it using the dropper to the farthest part of the gradient that has some defined color, maybe this bottom part here. And now you've got a gradient that matches effectively the background of your painting. So I obviously use these features a lot with my black and white paintings, with almost every painting I do, my blue ones sometimes. Other times I'll use just black and white to really signify metal, especially on Tantrum, my red flame painting. I like the metal and flame type of combination. Give me one sec, I'm going to take a drink. But yeah, so typically I've just found, and this is just my style, you know, very simple, using these gradient bevels to kind of match and be compositionally uniform with the work. I'm sure you can use any kind of color you want, but this is just the most pleasing to my eye. Okay, so we filled in one spot. Now let's fill in the other spots. The cool thing is it'll actually remember what colors that you used, so you don't have to do that every time. Now, here's something to note. If you saw like a metal ribbon in real life, uh, it probably wouldn't look like this. I think because the direction changes of the metal, this would look a little bit more realistic. So what I did is I just flipped around the colors. You can also do that by clicking on here, and then you can click this button here, that reverse button on the right side of the tolerance. It's hard to see on the screen, but you can do it either way. So let's go back, boom, and I'll even click the reverse button here, boom, reverse. So that just gives you a very realistic looking bevel now, realistic looking ribbon. Now fill in this one. From a realistic standpoint, kind of hard to know. Typically, since I'm assuming that the ribbon flips over, I'm going to change the direction of the gradient to be more realistic. I think that, oops, I think this would probably be, okay, so accident there. Let's get back to that color. So unfortunately, I kind of lost it, but what I can do is pick a prior color that I had. I think it was this one. Yeah. Okay. So there's your gradient. There's your gradient fill feature. Um, Obviously, you have that now. Obviously, the black lines up here, you can also modify. So let's say I wanted to actually change that into the bevel as well. I can click that, change around the direction if I want to. Ideally, I'd be getting rid of this red. I think the red is not intentional. So what I can do is actually define it to like black or something. So I think that's kind of cool. And then maybe let's actually change the red. Let's see if this is even possible. So I clicked on the red, and now it's doing that. I'd say let's just make the whole thing gray, all the red, change it to gray. That is yellow. Stop coming up as yellow. Let's go to this gray. Boom, boom. So this is the fun and tedious part of doing these kind of projects, is these little tiny sections here. If you really want to get it perfect, you can go really far. Again, you can increase the tolerance to be able to capture more. And there's a problem. It pulled it identified that dark gray as we were filling it. So that's another reason to up the tolerance, right? So now I got to go back, lower the tolerance, which affects everything else, obviously, just to be able to do this a little bit more precisely. Okay, let's say that's good enough for now. Now, obviously, this is not perfect. It's not ideal, but this is how, if I'm just trying to do something quick and dirty, this is how I would do it. Okay, so now that you're happy with that, again, what do? You duplicate. And so now you've saved your work, essentially, by putting it on a new layer and hiding it. Let's go back to that original. And now that we have a kind of better idea of the metal feature, we can mess around with the swoops. We can pull things in different directions. We can change that middle function, right? And that just gives us some fun movements. So Sketchbook is a lot more limited than Procreate is in terms of that function, which I'd love to show you as well. But at least in the meantime, you can kind of see what I would usually do to get these features. See, this is just a hard painting to like amplify. There's something about this to me that is appealing. I really want to disguise that huge brush in the middle. It was kind of an accident. So if I was to do something like this, it disguises it pretty nicely, and gives that option to disguise it. Cool. So is this the best option? Probably not. But what you can do is you can take your original, you can isolate it, import it into Procreate, and play with it even more. So before I get into that, kind of just want to show you a little bit about how I would. Actually, we should probably do that first, because that really is the next feature. Excuse me, I'm a little stuffly today, so hopefully that's not affecting the video too much. So anyway, if you made it this far, I know this stuff can be a little dry, but hopefully you're getting some value. Just seeing my process, seeing how I do these kind of things. So part two now, we're going to export this beveled feature into Procreate just to stretch it around a little bit against this painting and see if we can come up with something a little bit better. So in order to do that, isolate every layer, or hide every layer except for the one you're trying to export. And you can see at the very bottom here, there's another layer. And what that layer is essentially, to the background. Now you can hide it completely which then creates a negative background or just a complete flat background. So that's perfect for exporting. So, like I said, isolate it to the layer you want, do share it as a PNG or a TIFF. TIFF is a little higher quality, but it's not. Oh, okay. So that did not even export. I may need to PNG, see what happens. Did it work this time? Aha, it did. Cool. So you can probably just put it straight into Procreate, but I don't know. I like to save the image. And then we open Procreate. Procreate, I think, is like $10 either a month or total. I don't really remember. Same kind of thing. You can see all your past projects. So let's start by importing from a photo, which is going to be this painting here. All right. So brand new software, fun. Anyone that knows Procreate knows it's pretty industry standard for a user-friendly, effective tool that you can do on mobile, on iOS, just to be able to quickly mock up. It's used for a lot of like painting actually, so there's all these different like brush stuff, brushes and stuff. But if you click on the top right, here are your layers. Essentially what we're going to do now is import that feature that we just got in Sketchbook. So create a new layer. I'm curious how many layers it'll make me make. So maximum of 3 layers, that's crazy. So the reason it did that is because this picture is taken on iPhone Pro RAW, and RAW is a 76 megabyte file. So I think Procreate limits you to like probably 100 megabytes. I don't really know the exact amount, and it does that based on layers. So anytime you add a new layer, it's going to get you closer to that 100 megabytes. So if you really want to make sure that you're not limiting yourself on layers, which is the mistake that I made here, take your iPhone picture not in Pro RAW. That'd be step 1. Step 2 would be just to do it in a lower resolution. I think you can change that in your settings, but keep it on that 1x between Procreate and Sketchbook so that you can keep those dimensions consistent across each platform. You're going to thank yourself later once you add the masking tape. Okay, go into your layer. You can toggle the hide feature here, just like you did in Sketchbook. Make sure I'm still recording. Yep, still going. Okay. Go to your layer. Now what you're going to do is import a photo, and that photo is going to be, of course, your bevel. So add, insert a photo. Yep, insert a photo. Pick your bevel. It'll import it, and it'll import it without that white background. So, and you can see it kept the exact same dimensions because you didn't modify the workspace of the background painting. Everything is consistent, same amount of pixel count, everything. So this is really good. Now what you've got here is the option to do a lot of cool things now. One thing that I have found a lot of use in is this warp feature. But before, again, let's duplicate the layer. To do it in Procreate, you press duplicate, but it says maximum layers reached. Slide, delete the prior layer then, duplicate this one. So we don't have to just import it every time. So let's hide that one. We got layer 2. Now again, to stretch it, you go into the selection tool. You go to, it has similar features like the distort feature, which lets you do this, same as Sketchbook. And if you double click your 2 fingers on the Procreate screen, it'll undo for you. That is the way you undo in Procreate versus Sketchbook. Like I said, you have that option in the settings, or you can click on the back button in the top left. But for Procreate, you just double click to undo, which is super convenient. Okay, freeform, uniform, distort, warp. That warp is really the one that we're going to find the most value from, I think, for the purposes of my work. So you can pull it in all these different formations, and the pulling itself, again, 2 finger to back out if it gets too crazy. The polling is really fun to do because it just like it gives you so much freedom to play with different features. And what's even cool is if it overlaps, it somehow just knows it keeps it realistic to its own proportions, if that makes sense. So I'm almost kind of liking something like this. So keep it like that. You pull it forward a little bit more, but then you kind of lose the other part. Could have it go up, could have it even slide this way, right? So I can get kind of creative with that. Now this is just totally based on feel. I mean, whatever you think looks the best is what you're going to go with. This tool is just super helpful for pulling things in a direction that you might find useful, right? So obviously super crazy. I'm not going to go with this one, but you can see how cool that tool could be in helping you render things. So let's go back to the original. One thing I also wanted to show you is the advanced mesh. So you click on the bottom left here, and now it gives you more vertexes to pull from. So let's say you just wanted that top vertex. Let's say you wanted to pull it down. Let's say you wanted to make this middle section swoop out or swoop up even. You can just pull on certain vertices. Vertices, I think is the way you say it. But you can see you have a lot more freedom of control. So if I'm doing what I usually do, I kind of make this, ooh, that's interesting. I like that swooping feature. So unique. Just like I would never be able to mentally think of these in my own head, you know? That's the cool thing about Procreate. It lets you do that. Like imagine that, right? It just comes off the top like that. Super cool. Super cool. So to me, that kind of saved the painting. Like whatever this is, and you know, it might look weird now, but once you layer things, you'll see that it'll actually be kind of cool. So let's commit to something like this. Yeah, I don't hate that. You know, I don't hate it. I don't love it, but something like this is unique and interesting enough to at least disguise the bad features and highlight the good features to me. Okay, so since I only have 3 layers and I need to duplicate my new work, get rid of that prior duplication, duplicate the new one, hide it. So what we're doing now is we're going to layer this within the painting. Okay, this is the part that really makes your painting stand out in a way that is, oh, color drop, that's new. I've never even clicked that before. That's kind of cool. Okay, so erasing the new feature that you just made to, you know, have it interweave within the painting. So you've got your painting. Now what you want to do is, I think you'd want to change the opacity on this painting, right? So you click N, you reduce the opacity. Yeah, that's how you do it. So keep it at like, I don't know, 60. Click on this eraser button up here. And for some reason, the eraser, oh yeah, the eraser is the formation that you want to erase with. I like monoline just because it doesn't have these weird, you know, features to it. And you can change the size of it by clicking on the left here, the size of the eraser. Monoline might be a little bit too small for this size today, but we'll find out. Now, this is where you can get kind of creative, right? You can kind of interweave certain features the way you'd want to. I like this little lapis thing pulling out. So yeah, so you're on the right layer and you're erasing that to go behind it. So hopefully that makes sense. And now look at that. Once I increase the opacity, you'll see it's like totally just super cool about it. I love all the splashes on the left side of the screen here, so I am definitely not going to cover those up. So use my finger. I'll come back to all these features here, and I will expose them by erasing them. It's interesting when you put it that way. So maybe have it a little bit more connected over here. You can even have it like, if you hold your finger down too long, it'll think that you're trying to do something else, so just be careful about that. So I don't know why I did it that way. I think I should just keep it like this. Something like that. Expose more of those splashes. This one, of course. And all of this. Now, do you do all of it? I guess. Or you just do a little bit of it? This is one of those things that you'll be glad you duplicated the prior so that you can see different formations um, of what you think looks good. I think I'm going to keep this part right here behind because it shows that the bevel feature is interweaving, which I like. Another thing potentially would be to pull this to make it go behind and then emerge from here. So there's a lot of crazy mental rotation happening right now, but this is kind of just comes with practice. And this to me is like the most fun part of doing art rendering is how do you interweave these features together to make it something coherent, right? And you can even keep that there, keep that. And so now you have some options. Also, the splashes up here, amazing. Have one above, one behind, one above, one behind. So it's really interweaving in a cool way. And then you do this. You get a little bit of expose over here. And that is essentially it. You have now, and watch this, this is the fun part. Click N, increase the opacity. Ta-da! Oh, what did I just do? Okay. And now you have this cool beveled feature that looks like this. So let's call the beveling done now. And let's essentially, well, we could, or watch this. We can take another one, put it back on, and we can, oops, we can warp it, we can stretch it. Like imagine you wanted to do something else up here, like, oh, you have so many possibilities. Look at that. You could duplicate it, put it over here, and now you just have this really cool thing going on. And let's say you wanted to warp it more. You just have this really interesting, I love that like cobra looking thing. Um, right? And you can put that. I'd almost be interested in yeah, putting it up here. Now you freeform it, stick it over here, and try to have it be consistent with the prior one somehow. Almost like taking it with the existing line over here. See what I mean? I'm continuing that line in the middle and doing that. So that has potential. Do I love it? No, but does it work? I think so. Okay. Oops. So I undid it, so now I got to redo it by clicking 3 times. Okay, so that's what's cool now. But I only have 3 layers, so I kind of just got to not duplicate this new thing, and I have to erase the features that I don't like. Let's see. Oops, 3 fingers again. And we're going to erase. I'm going to use a bigger eraser here just because I kind of need to. Oh, but that doesn't look like a good one. I've got to use maybe a brush pen or a script. Get it real big. Okay, so I'm going to lower the opacity on the new one just to help me see what I'm erasing. It's clearly just that section. Okay, cool. Okay, so you got this cool Cobra thing, and what will you be erasing? You will be erasing, let's use the small monoline again. Go to this size, and again, this is what you want. You want those splashes up here. This is that organic stuff that really makes these paintings look awesome. I think I went a little too low. So redo. All the way up. Really get these features here. Splashy, splashy. Maybe even this one over here. Of course, doing this pretty roughly. Here, I'll make it a little nicer. So you can see we're probably, I don't know what we are, 20 to 30 minutes into our session here. Usually I wouldn't commit to a design this early, but I will definitely do um, these kind of erasings um, as I go, because I really have to know what looks the best. You just have to play with it to really know. Okay, still erasing that new feature. Let's make that a little nicer. And this is going to look awesome once we add some drop shadows, maybe some halos, some geometry. And here you can, again, you probably want this to be in front, so you erase it, and you want it to go through. So now you've got these crazy features. Exciting. Up the opacity, and you now have this interesting painting. So this is an exercise too. Check this out. Flip it upside down. How's that look? Not as good. Flip it this way. Flip it this way. That's kind of cool. Overall, I think this is just mentally what makes me think it's okay. But you saw with that erasing exercise, you can really have these features interweave in a super unique way. Emphasize the features that you want to emphasize, all the splashiness, you see that? And now I've kind of disguised that big swoop in the middle that was not intended. Okay, now we're going back into Sketchbook. I really only use Procreate to do those beveled swooping features and the erasing. And only sometimes Sketchbook is able to handle that. So you go into here, you're going to share this as a PNG. Hopefully it doesn't crash on me again. That was quite fun. You do save image, and it'll go into your photo reel. There we go, export successful. Now, Sketchbook. Open it up. This is where it gets kind of fun, in my opinion. This is where we add the shadowing. This is where we add the lasers, right? This is the fun part to me. So you open up a new layer. You can keep it on the same project or open up a new project, however you want to do it. I'll keep it on the same just to show the start to finish reveal at the end. But you have a layer here. You're going to, again, go into this camera plus thing at the very top. Click on the image. Do this. Click your photo. Oh, so don't scale it like I did. So hopefully it'll let me redo that. Scaling. Nope. So do it again. Click the photo up here. import the image. See I got all these interesting assets in there, like rings and stuff. Okay, don't drag it, click done, and now you've got your original file in here. And you can see that by keeping the original sizing across both apps, it just flows very well together. Okay, whether you love it or hate it, it's here to stay. Cool. So this is our thing here. Now, we got a few options. We got some halo geometries, we got some drop shadows, we got a bunch of things. What we do know for certain is that drop shadows are going to be a thing. So if you think about the layering of this, you want to add shadows obviously behind something because it just signifies that the light's coming at it. So any place you want to show depth and show light, that's when you add the shadowing, the drop shadows. So on the left here, let's click this brush. This is the one I use. It's a flow airbrush. Keep it on, I don't know, 45 for now. We're going to oscillate that between 20 and 80. Keep it at around 40 opacity. Bottom right here, click on the black. So one secret is you actually don't want to go pure black. You want to go a little bit up from there, maybe something like that. Pure black just looks a little too corny to me, in my opinion. And I think shadows in real life tend to be a little darker gray than pure black. So I use that for my real life airbrushing as well. Unless I'm airbrushing on a complete pitch black surface, then I will use pitch black and just go very light. We saw that on Anomaly 0. So we've got our color selected, we got our airbrush. Now we're going to zoom into the sections that we want to add shadowing to. Right off the bat, this lapras looking thing, I immediately think that something like this would look good. I think 2 strokes, 1, 2, has potential. I also think that increasing the size would be more realistic and lowering the opacity would be more realistic. Boom, boom. Potentially. You could even throw it over here, kind of like that, because it shows how far away it is from that beveled surface. Let's increase the size even more, 70. Has potential, right? Maybe even a little bit more subtle, just one line. Or make it a little bigger, 88, one line. To keep it simple, I'm going to do that. Just one line right there. So I'd actually realistically want to keep it a little bit higher, technically. Boom. Okay. So you see I did that like 5 or 6 times just to get the right shadowing. So that's just the way it is. So you're going to have shadowing back here as well. Oh, but so here's the mistake I made, everybody. Look at the bottom right. I am on my paint layer. I'm on the wrong layer. So back it out, create a new layer. You can keep it wherever you want as long as it's above it, so it'll overlap the features. And make sure you're on that layer when doing your airbrush. So now I got to redo it. Boom. 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 Okay, that's good enough. A little bit behind there. What else? A little bit behind here. What I can do is kind of make it start here and bevel out a little bit more. Yeah, I kind of like that. I think that's okay. Here. Maybe a little bit of this underside definitely needs some. For this one, I'll make it probably a little bit bigger, increase the opacity, and just go like this. Yeah. Now, a little trick here is you'll see to really create drop shadows, you don't want to put the shadow like right next to the object. You can, but it just like, I think it loses a little bit of its power to it. I like keeping it at a distance to keep a little bit of white space in between the shadow and the object. You can kind of see in this section here, it really accentuates the shadow even more. than if it was right pushed up to it. This is kind of tripping me out. Don't love it. I think it's a little too like defined or something. Yeah, maybe that's better. All right, continue on. Little sections up here. These are just like little fine details, not necessarily critical, but they do add up in the end. This is too dark to even like see the shadow, so I don't really even want to bother. Here is obviously going to be a good shadow spot. A little complicated about where to put the shadowing, but maybe something like, I'm probably gonna have to erase things, increase the opacity. Yeah, something like that, right? Does the job. And of course, erase the sections that I just did over, because you don't want shadowing there. You want it behind. Oops. Boom. Man, I really hope this video records. First time doing this. All right. And again, shadowing, where else would you want it, right? Maybe back here. It's probably a little too big. It's a little too small, probably. Bigger, lower opacity. Maybe here. Maybe a little bit here. And of course, if you're doing it accurately, right, and especially in real life when you end up doing it, you're going to mask off the sections you don't want airbrush on. So realistically, in real life, you're going to be, removing with your tape the sections around it, which is very subtle here, not really even necessary. So what sticks out from a distance right now is this looks like crap. These are too subtle compared to the rest of the shadows, so I'm going to up that. Boom, boom. I'm going to do this a little bit better. This might be an example where being a little bit closer would actually look better. So I think that's getting there. Yeah, it's getting there. Okay. What else? So there's probably other sections that don't even involve the bevel that you can add shadowing to. So think about the painting itself, right? If you had this painting, where would you add shadow? Where would you want to emphasize? Where would you want to de-emphasize? If it were me, I'd like to add shadow. This is pretty subtle, but maybe somewhere like here. Like, am I even painting? I think I am. Oh, but look, it's because my layering wasn't above. That makes sense. That makes sense. See, even I have rookie mistakes. Okay, so we click on the airbrush. Where would you want to add it? Back here potentially, right? Let's up that a little bit, up that size, 87. You want it behind because that swoosh is in front. You maybe want this right here, right? You'd want potentially this. Doesn't have to be too much. You'd probably want to break up some of this white, right? Like put a shadow there maybe. Maybe not right there. Or if I do, it'd be more subtle. Yeah, maybe that is the right spot. A lot of this shadow work is just putting it on and seeing what looks the best. But so that is what you can see, maybe even back behind here, right? Because there's a little ledge or a shelf. What else? Really, I think that's really it. Now let's go back with our eraser, make sure we're not doing too many unnecessary spots. Here's going to be the big one. Get rid of everything in the foreground here, because we only want shadow behind. Whole point of a shadow. Okay. Again, super subtle. It's not even that significant, but with airbrush, once you get quick at it, put some tape down, do some masking tape, scalpel it a little bit. It's so quick, so why not? This is really what's going to separate your paintings from the rest. Okay, done. New one here, done. Got all your new shadowing. So, I mean, you tell me, right? Better without, better with, without, with. It's all up to preference, but if you're trying to be realistic about it, then shadowing is the way to go. Small little detail to have a pretty subtle impact, but again, if that's how you want to separate your paintings from the rest, that's how you do it. Cool, so let's consider shadow work done now. No need to really duplicate the shadows in my opinion, just keep it there, everything's good. If you haven't already, save your work. Might as well here, do top left, click save, save to the gallery. Hopefully you guys are getting value from this. Try to jot down some comments down below if you're feeling that I missed something or I need to go into more detail about something. But this is really my process. Sometimes this will take, like I said, 5 hours, 20 hours. I'll do whatever it takes to get the best rendering, because once you have an accurate rendering, it's so much easier to paint. And once you get fast at rendering, um, it doesn't feel like such a drag. But learning these softwares really is kind of a drag. I'm trying to learn Blender right now, and it is just an absolute mess. Like, I kind of hate it, but I know once I get it, it'll be fun, just like these softwares are for me now. Okay, project saved. Now, let's add some lasers. Okay, click bottom left. Um, if it's not preloaded, you can just go into this left section here. You can see all your different options. I use glow neon. Obviously, what it does, it shows you a preview here of what it'll look like. Because I'm using a dark gray, this is what the neon would look like. Obviously, there's no such thing as a dark gray neon. So go on the bottom right, change that color. Let's, what do we want? Do we want red? Do we want blue? I'm kind of feeling like an icy blue. I think an icy blue would be kind of cool. Almost like, not like a teal, but like something like that. And what you'll see is, so okay, let's do the brush again. This is showing you a nice example of what it's going to look like. I'll put the size at about, I don't know, 66. The flow, as you can see, it adds the glow as to be more thick or more thin. I like to keep it around, 50-ish, 55. So this is really interesting about Sketchbook, is the way that it does the glow. So, oops, let's just freehand it. And by freehanding, you do that. Let's up it a little bit. Sometimes you can get stuck using a circle because it's highlighted up at the top. So just make sure that you're not highlighted. Make sure you just have the tool selected on the left if you want to freehand. Anyway, I want this glow to have a little bit more white in the middle. I think this is just too teal. So what you're going to do is just kind of play with the colors. What I found, oops, go back to your teal, and you can click on your color history too to pull up a prior color if you miss it. Take this, pull it inwards a little bit and up, and see what happens. So now look at the white is in the middle. That was more of what I was intending. Pull it down a little bit. It's cool that you can see the color history next to what you're modifying to really get that effect. A little too bright for me. Let's darken it up a little bit, make it even more teal. Interesting. Darken it up even more, maybe. Maybe even more. And it gets that kind of cool feature. Let's also make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, there we go. Put it up here. Gets a little bit brighter. Maybe even higher. Yeah, I think something like that's more what I'm going for. So you just got to play with it until you kind of figure it out. But I do like this. So what I'm going to do is what you can do is click on the hex right here and you can save this number as the color that you want. I'm just going to go ahead and screenshot it if it ends up being I want to use. It'll save the color anyway, but I just like to be careful. So there's teal. And what's cool is I'm in a new layer. So what I can do is eventually if I do want to use a different color and I don't want to make a brand new one, you click on it, you click HSL, which I think is like hue saturation something, hue saturation light maybe, color balance, right? So you can, this is more just to take the existing color and add certain features to it based on, you know, these sliders here. This is maybe less interesting than HSL. So let's back at what I just did. Just kidding. Go to HSL. Now look at that. You can change the actual color. And now I really know, I'm like, dang, that red actually looks cool because the accidental red outer lines. You can change the saturation to come up a little bit, change it back to white. So I think a little bit of a more saturated red is kind of interesting. I'm almost interested in doing that. Could even use red and blue. Has some potential for sure. Okay, so let's just get a laser formation going, then we'll mess with the colors later. So we clearly just have this swirling whirlwind of different crazy features here. Yes, this would be hard to paint, but with a projector and some good curvy masking tape, shouldn't be too bad. You can also freehand it, I'm sure, but for me, I like that accuracy, so I'd probably use the projector. What is the motion that's really being shown here? I think it's very chaotic. I think it's very random. I think it's this abstract sea landscape that is just suspended in midair. It doesn't seem very grounded. I do like that beveling feature on the bottom right, how it kind of continues. If I was painting it, I'd probably, you know, for example, continue it to go like this just to show that it's going off the page. I might even do the same for this one, right? Something like that, just to kind of give it some more grounding so it's not so suspended. I think it could use some grounding in this section over here as well, just to really tie it in all together. So maybe I will use my laser formations to tie it together there. So let's start with, circles and boxes. Keep it real simple. Circle. Oop, that is not a laser circle. Click on your laser, do your circle. Make sure I'm still recording. Looks like I am. Okay, let's do a circle here. So that is circle. Now here's how I get those hyper depth. I go to the transform tool, click it. Now instead of clicking that middle circle, which I don't think you want to touch right now, if you're doing circles, just pull one corner a little bit like this. Pull this section out, pull this out, pull that, and you can really get this cool halo effect. Like I said, I want to ground it more towards the left side, so I'm going to kind of disguise the lack of grounding over there by having it very blown up. I also love when splashes go through a halo. That's something I really do enjoy, and that could be an option for sure. Cool. So I've got that halo. Again, that's an option. Now, every feature deserves its own layer. New layer, maybe do another halo. Perfect world, I would have duplicated the existing one to keep the same proportions. The signature Nick Boltman is to do two halos kind of looking at each other or doing something to, you know, doing something to really capture the energy. Something like this, I don't mind. It's not bad. I kind of like how they're a little offset. I might even make it a little bit less, yeah, a little bit tighter. Like this has some potential. Make it a little bit smaller to really create that space. Like imagine you have one halo, another halo that people perceive as the same thing. And if you make them smaller in scale, it'll just create so much open space in the middle of the painting. So maybe something like that, right? That has potential. So that's one option. Again, we're going to erase it behind, which I'm going to go ahead and do. Usually I would duplicate these, but I'm okay with that. So you want to probably keep the top bigger part of the laser, the exposed part, so everything that's skinny would go behind the features. Behind, behind, behind. Make your eraser a little bit smaller to get this little section. And now you have a choice. Do you keep it behind the bevel or do you keep it behind the splash? I think if it was up to me, behind the bevel. And again, I'm going to try to continue that bevel. See, now you back up and now you're like, okay, not the move. So let's keep it with the splash. It's a little easier anyway. Cool. So that one's done. Click on your next layer, do the same thing. Now I think for this one, I'll try to keep the halos behind the entire features. I really don't want to cover up this beautiful swoop here. I'll go behind there. Maybe even can go in between that. That has potential. And it can help break up the monotony of the big line. We'll see. We'll give it a try, see how it looks. Boom, boom. All the splashy features we'll keep in the foreground. So we can either do something like this, or we can have it kind of go behind everything. Which I don't mind. I kind of like that. You know, I kind of like that. It might not be for everyone, but I think I'm going to do that. Okay. In the spirit of erasing, let's lower the opacity of this so you know what you're erasing. Um, and we're going to just get those little fine baby splashes. This is, I think, what is really what makes this get set apart here. And this is going to take some complex masking tape work in real life, obviously. But if you've been following me, you know I use a packaging tape and a very sharp scalpel, like an X-Acto knife, when doing this. And it works pretty well. Still looking for better options. I did find this tape called like a Fisker tape or something like that. And I'm going to give that a try. Buy it on Amazon soon and try that. But in the meantime, the packaging tape will be good enough. You don't have to do all of them. Sometimes it can get a little bit weird if you try to do everything like that's ugly, you know. But the skinny ones in real life would probably get washed out from the light anyway. So no need to try to make it too perfect. The bevel, I kind of like having it go above there too. Okay. So increase the opacity and you can see. I mean, look at the splashes there. That's so pretty to me how it does that. So now you have this. You have this as an option, right? This is an option that you can do, or try something different. Let's try some rectangles while we're at it, right? Oh, I'm on the erase tool. So let's do a rectangle. Let's do a classic Nick Boltman hyper depth crazy box here. Something I do like it having in the corner. I'm sorry, everyone. I know I always do that. But again, it helps ground the energy, I think, in this corner and gives the opportunity for the splashes to come through. Another thing. And then, of course, we probably add another box. Again, probably should have just duplicated the first one, but we don't do things perfectly every now and then. Oops, and again, I made it on the wrong layer. I used the exact same layer, which doesn't let me isolate the features. New layer, make your rectangle, make your box, and now you have a little bit of weirdness. Now, I can already tell I don't like the rectangles as much. And I think it's because the features are all so swoopy, so flowy, so feminine. These boxes just, I think, force it too much into a rigid frame that I don't really like. Now, that's me personally. You might see this and be like, that's so much doper. Not for me. So I already know that I'm not going to do that. We'll keep it for safekeeping, just because you never know once you start really overanalyzing it. But let's do one more try of something. Now, if you remember at the very start of this, we made those cool Nike swooshes by making a circle, clicking transform, pulling that inner circle up, okay? That gives you kind of a interesting starting point for some features like this. Now, again, what is the energy of this painting that you're trying to capture? See, I don't love this tool. I think there's got to be something better for these kind of features. See, okay, that's what I like. Yeah, when you can make it this cool like fang or this claw. Um, but if you look at this, right, you have this option to make these interesting little beams. So like imagine, right, beam going through, and that beam really captures the energy of what's going on here. I think it kind of follows the same motion. Before I do that, let me duplicate this. I keep talking about that. Duplicate it, hide, pull this one back into its spot. Now, of course, I'm getting a lot faster at this as time goes on. I kind of showed the basics, but now I'm just kind of speeding through, showing you my process here. I like how the fang at the very end goes all the way to the right side. Keep it kind of symmetrical with everything else. Do that. Maybe even make it bigger in the corner, right? Now, that's pretty extreme, obviously, but if you can do that plus a smaller one above, which I love to do, I think that has potential because it exaggerates the splashes, and I think that has some potential. Kind of keeps it all consistent in terms of its energy. Yeah, I don't mind that. It's interesting. Cool. So, got these two options now. Again, do the fun part, start erasing. Let's say it comes from here, goes up, maybe goes behind the bevel. No, let's keep it in front. And then, again, I love when the splashes are in the front. The splashes are really what separates a painting from a rendering of some AI generated crap. So splashes, guys, splashes. That's what makes this so appealing. In my opinion, of course. And let's have it wrapping around the bevel. Look at that. So much potential. Maybe we'll have this get in the foreground as well. The interesting splash formations. Interesting. Yeah, maybe something like that. Why not? And of course, the big boy. I kind of like it going over the bevel. I see potential in actually isolating this bevel, but it really makes it stand out. That's my one concern. Let's see how it looks. Oops, way too skinny. Oh, come on, Nick. Okay, so yeah, I accidentally went overboard there. You know what? I'm not gonna bother. I don't actually think it's gonna look that good if I do that. So keep that. Boom, boom, boom. So I don't know, guys. I think this has potential. I think this actually communicates the energy of the painting pretty well. You pull out pretty far and you can see how it looks at a distance. Maybe let's now compare it to our circles. Our circles, to me, kind of boring. I don't know. What do you think? Kind of boring. I'm liking this energy. I think it pulls the direction of the painting correctly, where it isolates or it pulls the energy to the right side while also having so much going on around it. And maybe on the left side it's very exploded. On the right side it's more contained. Either way, I'm kind of liking this, right? This is actually what I'm going to go with. Might not be for everyone, but as an artist, you got to trust your instincts. Let's merge it down. Let's change the colors. This is the fun part. Now you get to really play with what is it that you're trying to communicate here? Is it these crazy red lines? You know, I kind of like that. I don't hate that. So what I'm going to do, what I like to do, is screenshot it and see it from a distance in my camera roll to see what looks the best. Now, initially I was going to go with some like kind of tealy blue. I really like that dark blue, actually. That's so cool looking. Dark blue. More saturated, less saturated. Let's keep it about there. Screenshot. And finally, maybe, I don't know. I'm not feeling the purple. Really am feeling the red. Hate to admit it. Fan of red. Not everyone likes red because they have so many um, associations with it. You know, blood, guts, roses for love, fire, passion, heart. They're very intense associations with red, but you know what? I dig it. All right, now if I was to do anything else to extend this painting, the one final thing I would do, of course, like I had mentioned at the start, was to really extend these lines at the bottom. So take this color, extend it. You know what? I should probably actually do it on the actual painting layer. So go back to painting layer. This is one of those rare situations where you'd actually keep it on the painted layer. Let's do this. I'm sure there's a more technical way I could be doing this, but I'm just flicking my finger trying to get the right motion here. Almost. There we go. That has potential. Okay. Again, solid fill. Fill that in. You can change the tolerances to make sure it doesn't get all wacky. When you touch it too much, it kind of freaks the screen out. So you see I froze up now. Yeah, because it was trying to figure out where to put it. So be careful when doing that. I clicked too many times. Hopefully I'm not lagging and recording still. Yeah, so I'm definitely lagging now. So you got to be careful with that. Yeah, I think oh, I'm not stuck. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back, back, back. Wow, it really lagged on me there. That's crazy. It's still lagging. Go back again. Am I still recording? I am, okay. Okay, we still good. Another back. Okay, another back. You know what? I'm gonna keep it there. What a mess. Okay, so, and you know what's interesting is this little bevel feature, this little corner slash. I actually really like that. It makes it look so metallic. So, let's see how it looks if I was to fill it. Maybe not that way. Also, what happened to my old color combo? That's annoying. Oh well. Well, let's use a line tool here. So I haven't showed you this little line tool. And you can just go like this. Get rid of the line, fill in that corner, and maybe fill this in with maybe not gray, maybe, I don't know, use blue. Not gray, just said that. There's blue. Okay, better. So now I can use this and let's fix this section. We need to isolate that. Call it blue. And now we have that bevel, which has potential. Now check this out. You add a linear fill, you modify the colors to be just like your background gradient. Let's just pull this color and then this one here as that light color. Now you got this. And now play with the direction to see if there's anything that looks palatable. I don't hate that. I think that's somewhat cool. I almost like the beveliness to it. Maybe this too. What happens if I press this? Ooh, that just changed the entire thing. Do not do that. Bad, bad, bad. Okay, I mean, don't love that, but did the job, I guess. Yeah, you know what? I actually don't like that. It kind of took away from something. So I wonder if I just go back, 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 what everything will look like. Honestly, I kind of like it just like that, which is not kosher to do because, I don't know, it's kind of weird, but oh well. And maybe even, and this is not right either because I'm erasing the entire painting, but if I did something like this, right? Got rid of all of that. It's just a little too much, maybe. So again, little touch-ups to finalize the painting. Kind of like that because it captures the energy pretty well, the motion. Maybe a little less bulbous right there. But has potential. Not bad. A little cartoony, but not bad. And then of course this top one too. A little bit of the same thing, which we can do. Hopefully you guys are getting value from how I'm doing this. And if you have questions, please leave them down below. This is a little tutorial. I'm probably not going to paint this. I'm more just really just doing this for you guys to see the different options that you have when doing these renderings. Okay, so that's done. Now let's disguise that color. It's this. Boom. And we're then going to add in this color to the rest of it. Oh, that was way too much because the tolerance is so high, I would imagine. Let's lower it, fill it just to here. There we go. So Might even be easier, just take your pen, up the amount, fill it in. All right, everybody, I am basically done with this painting, so now we're going to look at it from a distance. What do we think? How do we like it? I think it's cool. Yeah, I mean, I think this would be a hit for sure, and I think I saved the painting. So check this out. Get rid of all this, and what we have is the start. We had this little weird splash painting that I wasn't excited about into this painting that I am pretty excited about, not gonna lie. Cool lasers already, you can tell, really accentuate the motion. Add your shadowing, add your features. Kind of like it without the features too. So anyway, that's an exercise. That's what I would do anytime I'm using Sketchbook Procreate. Sorry for the sniffles. Hopefully you guys still got a lot of value from this. But anyway, that is a little tutorial. Tell me what I missed, and thank you guys so much for watching.